How do developers successfully transition from writing code every day to managing projects and people? That's the question we're considering on this episode of Dynamic Developer. I'm your host, Bill Detweiler, and I'm lucky to be joined by someone with experience doing just that, Dr. Dries Buytaert. As the founder and project lead of Drupal, Dries has certainly written a lot of code, but he's also the founder and CTO of Acquia, a company that offers software and services built around Drupal and has been recognized as a young global leader at the World Economic Forum. Dries, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
So, Dries, you've taken a career path that I think many developers and engineers take, from coder to a project manager, lead, and eventually now to an executive position, right? I mean, maybe most devs won't become a CTO or co-found a company like you have, but they do make that transition from daily coding into management. And what do you think are some of the biggest challenges maybe that developers and engineers, coders face when they transition from a coder to someone who manages people and projects?
It's a good question. I mean, I can talk about my experience. I don't know if it's universal for every developer that transitions into a manager, but I've done a couple of different things, right? So maybe I can give you a little bit of the context first, but I was an engineer by education, and then ended up starting an open source project called Drupal, which actually, has grown to be one of the larger open source projects in the world. That actually taught me quite a bit about management. But I also started a company called Acquia, built around Drupal, and that has grown, to over 1,000 people actually. And so I've definitely kind of went through I'm an individual developer, sort of working in my basement on an open source project, and then seeing, Drupal take off, and see Acquia take off. And people ask me this question from time to time, and what advice would you have? And one of the things that I sometimes answer, and it's a little bit purposely kind of controversial when you say that to developers, but I usually give them the advice to learn sales and marketing. And sometimes there is a little bit of an adverse reaction to sales and marketing, right? Which is why I say it that way. But if you think about what it means to be a manager or to be a founder of a company, so much of your time is spent, selling and marketing, and maybe a better word would be communicating. But when you start your company, you have to convince investors to give you money. That was hard, And when you have the money, you need to convince other engineers to join your company. And then once they've joined your company, you need to sell them on the vision of the company and where we're going. Then you need to start getting customers, because what you're doing now, trying to convince and sell and market to, prospects, to try and convince them to become customers. And so for me, the thing that I had to learn the most, and because I was, and I still am actually, an introvert, I had to really learn how to, communicate well, I guess, in a way that is convincing and maybe inspiring to people, and, employees, investors, customers. And so I think being a manager, I think it's learning about leadership and communication, listen, but also lay out sort of the vision and where you're going and the plans. So these are things that I had to learn. And I sort of had to learn them 2 times too. One's in Drupal, and then one's at Acquia. And my leadership style is actually a little bit different in both, because the way you lead an open source project is more by inspiration, if you will. The way you lead a company, you're a little bit more direct, right? You can serve, this is what we're going to do. and everybody says, okay, I mean, I'm simplifying, but in open source, it's a different story. It's like, here's what I think we should do, and then hopefully people will follow. And even in a company, people have to follow, obviously, but there's nuances. And I had to learn that actually, because when I started Acquia, I'd been doing Drupal for 7 years, and I had to kind of adjust that a little bit.
Is there anything you wish you'd known, but besides sort of learning those, learning how to sell yourself, learning how to sell your product, learning how to sell your company, or just convince people and inspire people? Is there anything you wish you'd known back then that you kind of know now?
1,000 things, yeah. Like, yeah, there's a long list of things. I mean, like how to manage, how to hire. I mean, all of these things I had to learn. Like, once you're promoted to a manager, you tend to be a hiring manager too.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, you need to learn how to recruit people and how to manage people and how to deal with poor performers. All of these things I had to learn.
How, how did how did you learn them? I mean, did you just learn from other? Did you have mentors that helped you? Did you watch other managers? Did you watch? Did you take classes? Right? I mean, did you literally go get take MBA classes? I mean, what was the process like for you coming from an engineering background and a PhD, then to a people skill? Just it's I don't know if you would make the comparison and say I come from an engineering background too myself, but I also have a little soft skills. So, they're equally kind of complicated in their own way. So what was it for you that kind of helped you learn them? The skills.
I learned by doing, and I learned from others. So, first of all, I don't think anyone is born with these skills. I mean, some people are better communicators than other people, but a lot of the things you actually have to learn, like how to manage somebody, how to, like, the good news is it can be learned. Um, and the way I learned it is by doing and getting better every time I did it. But I was also fortunate that I was able to surround myself with really great people every step along the way. Both in Drupal and at Acquia, frankly. Um, and so surrounding yourselves with experienced managers or experienced leaders, um, it's very helpful and kind of fast tracks that learning, right? You can see, oh, here's how this person does it, and here's how she does that. And so you can kind of take those things from them and apply them to sort of, your own team, let's say. So I think
And
learning from others is the fastest way to learn. I don't think there's classes. Well, I'm sure there's classes around this, but I have never gone to formal classes.
And do you think, how important is it also, do you think, because I hear you describing yourself as being very observant, as saying, I think I want to get better at this. So I'm going to attack this like any other kind of project. I'm going to watch people who have more experience, or it seems to be working better for them, or they seem to be getting the result I wanted. So you were open and receptive to learning that. Whereas, I know a lot of managers maybe, or, people that don't succeed at that maybe aren't as open, or they think they know best, or they think, I can manage both of these organizations the same way and I'll have the same results, and they don't try to change, or they don't do that. That to me sounds like something you did. Maybe it's just inherent to your nature, but it sounds like something other people could learn. Like, if you're not willing to sort of make any changes and accept that, hey, I don't know how to do this, I'm going to watch this and learn from them. That's going to set people up for a bad experience to really sort of not succeed at that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Like, I mean, if you're a person and you think like you know it all, like, I mean, like that's kind of like arrogant, right? Like nobody knows it all. I think everybody keeps learning. I mean, I hope I can be a lifelong learner. I mean, that's actually rewarding to me. So, you know, there is no such thing as being a perfect manager. I mean, everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and everybody has opportunities to learn and get better. So, um, think you definitely need to have the learning mentality. I personally love learning, and I learn by observing. I learn by reading. Actually, what I did do a lot is read books, and I still read a lot of books on like management or all sorts of things, right? Um, and I think keep learning. I mean, that's part of the fun to me.
Definitely.
So, and ask for feedback too. I think that's something that I try to do, especially at Acquia, is just ask for feedback. Like, what can I do better? What can I do more of? And I think that's healthy to have these dialogues with the people that you manage. And I think I learned from that as well.
Yeah. So I have to ask, do you still have time to write code these days? I mean, with everything you're doing with Drupal and at Acquia and, traveling around, do you still get a time to go back to your roots a little bit, write some code?
Not a lot, but I will tell you, I miss coding. I think about it almost every day, actually. Um, but I prioritize it lower than a lot of other things that I do. And so, like literally, when I wake up, I try to think like, what should I do today that has the biggest impact on Drupal and Acquia? And it's almost never coding for me. Unfortunately, I secretly hope it would be like one day it's like, wow, go code, like go write this piece of code. But it usually involves unblocking other people or teams or helping to fundraise for the Drupal Association right now. And so the coding is often sort of reserved for evenings and weekends. And I like to dabble with code still. I like to work on things. Um, you know, like even my own website, my blog, it's like I build it, I maintain it, I write some custom extensions for it. Um, I like to learn new technology. So yeah, I still do some coding, but it's more on the edges, I guess, versus like, the core systems of Drupal or something.
Dries, I think that's a great place to end it. Where can folks go to learn more about Drupal, Acquia, and read your blog posts?
Well, Acquia is our website. It's probably the best way. That's ACQUIA.com. Drupal is, Drupal.org, DRUPAL. By the way, never let me name anything going forwards. And then my name, my blog is just my name. It's DRI.ES. So Dries, DRI.ES. That's my blog.
And you can listen to more episodes of Dynamic Developer on your favorite podcast platform, or watch a video of each episode as well as read a transcript at Tech Republic.